All right, welcome back, everybody. I've kind of put on the back burner the 29 Tudor. You saw where I went up to my dad's place. He's been storing my 31 Sport Coupe in his barn over in the corner, and I just don't have room here. That's actually what I've been doing just earlier today, was cleaning up, trying to get some more space here so I can work on this again. And if you look at the videos, I went up there and got mine running, again, and brought a battery up there and got it started. Timing was off, so I reset the timing, messed with adjusted the carburetor a little bit. Then I found it had a bad exhaust leak, so I worked on that also. You can check out the previous videos on that. And then I also did a radiator flush. I got an infrared thermometer, and I could check the temperature. And that was actually interesting because once I had set the timing and adjusted the carburetor, I could monitor, and I actually monitored the radiator, and you could see the different flow points in that video. But I could also point it at the head of the engine, and it doesn't have a thermostat in it, but it's stayed right at 180 degrees. So, running normal, just sitting there idling, was at 180. Then I could also check the different temperatures around inside the head just to make sure water's flowing and the side of the engine. Then the other interesting part is I put it on the exhaust manifold to see how hot it would get. That's an interesting video, so go out and check that one out. And let's see, the other thing, worked on my dad's truck a little bit. It would just fire and then sputter and backfire, and it was acting weird. We finally figured out that it wasn't getting great compression, although we couldn't find his compression tester, and mine was still down here, and I don't think mine has the adapter to fit these spark plug holes. So I actually bought an adapter for that now, so we could actually check the compression. But just using the thumb and moving it seemed like 3 and 4, 2 and 3, one of those were a little bit lower than like number 1. So pull the head off, pull the distributor, pull the head off, and I took a carpentry square, which most people have one of these around, and you can put it across the head, and you could see the head was warped. So yeah, I took that to a machine shop and got it machined, and I think we also wanted, when we had the head off, we were looking at the valves and stuff, that he wants to polish the valves. What is that called? I can't remember. Anyways, he wants to clean up the valves, and then he's gonna put the head back on and torque it down and see if that helps the running of his 1930 pickup. And then another video, his Model A Club did a tech seminar, and it was the kind of the differences that happened between building millions of Model Ts and then the new Model A coming out. So he has a Model T, and we're just showing some of the differences on a Model T compared to on the Model A, like the commutator, the timer versus the distributor. Model Ts have really weird carburetors on them. His does not have a starter, so it's a hand crank. Transmission's totally different. It's more similar to an automatic transmission than this gear and clutch system that most people my age are more used to, a clutch and shifter. Kids nowadays, everything's automatic. and he showed the transmission, the brakes, the reverse, and we just talked about the Model T. So that's on the previous videos. So you need to go check those out and see some of the differences. And that was a tech seminar for his Model A club there in North Georgia, North Carolina area, Western North Carolina. But back to today. So back to the 29. I'm wanting to get back, at least working on the engine and getting it started. And I've been rolling through my head. I've been doing so many projects around here. You can actually check them out. Here, I'll put it up here on the screen or something. Or in the description, the link to my second channel, which is Ted's_home renovation. And in that, you can see I've rented a Mini X and dug some holes to half bury Connex containers for more storage. And then I rented a skid steer to regrade the front yard because we had a water drainage issue. And so I used the skid steer and the Mini X for doing all of that, and then replanted 4,000 square feet of sod. And then I've been trying to keep the sod alive because we have been in like this drought, and finally got a little bit of rain just yesterday after a few months. So I've been thinking about it as I've been working on the sod and all these other projects about this car, and made a list. So let me go over what I'm thinking to move forward on this, especially if you have better comments of my plan, and put them in the comment section below. We have Daisy here with us also. Let me introduce Daisy. Hey there, baby. You trying to sleep? You trying to sleep? Somebody keeps talking. Okay, let me see if I can set this up to where we can see this board. There's probably going to be a bad reflection on it. Okay, I'm looking at starting to work back on this 29 Tudor again, and I've done small bits and pieces. You can see the videos from last year where I went through the carburetors, and I had various carburetors, and some of them were missing parts. The most complete one was a Tillotson, which 40 years ago I actually got this engine running for like one day. It was like maybe 30 minutes total runtime on it, and then it went back in storage and hasn't ran since, and has been moved around in different storage locations. So trying to keep it up with all the parts has been difficult. But when in a previous video, I sit down and talk with my dad about cars, and this car in particular. He couldn't remember, because I was asking him like the brakes, the kingpins, just bushings and stuff, whether he remembers he redid those or not. Because he was actually driving this. He was in the Army, drove it from New England all the way to Georgia, and went to airborne ranger schools. Well, I guess it's airborne school, and then he went to ranger school. And that's when a cotter pin, which he admits probably was not a cotter pin, it was a nail that he used, came loose, and the nut on the connecting rods came off, and he started thumping the connecting rod, and it just destroyed the Babbitt. He ended up able to drive it the rest of the way home, but that just pretty much destroyed the Babbitt on it. So because of that, he knew he needed to do something with the engine. So pulled the engine, took it to a rebuilder, and he actually had it rebabbited, which they pour almost like molten lead, but it's a lead like mixture for instead of bearings, and they pour it to match this engine. So he had it rebabbited. He didn't really remember anything else, what they did with it, whether they bored it out or they just honed it out, or if they replaced the rings even. He couldn't remember. By the time you pull all that apart, they probably put new rings in it. But he couldn't remember. And so I painted the chassis, but I haven't checked the wheel bearings. I haven't pulled the brake drums. So before driving this thing, I need to get back into those and pull them apart. I painted the transmission and the rear end. But I need to at least drain and flush the transmission and rear end, because I know for a fact those haven't been drained since in the last 60 years. And I don't know when he was driving it, if he actually, when he bought the car in like 1955, did he go through it and do some maintenance on it and check and drain it? Or, kind of knowing him, he stuck his finger in there and it's like, yep, it's got fluid, and just ran with it and not really flushed and cleaned it. So transmission, rear end, even the steering box, really need to flush it out, which those are really difficult to flush out. But so it's still a lot of a puzzle, but I still need to do those. So that's why I'm running this through my head after talking with him. I think that's last fall, we sat down here, and there's a video of that. And I think I actually had the full-length video, and then I broke it down into parts that were a little bit more, little 20-minute sections to watch. And so all of that going through my head and how I'm going to get this done. One of the big pushes I want to get this going is he's in his mid-80s now. His sister, who's the only other one that remembers this car and it running, and she's sort of a sponsor for this, and said that if I need help financially, she's going to try to help me with that. So that she is a few years older than him, I'll say, and they both are getting older. I'm getting older, so I don't know how much time I have left. I have lots of health issues: cystic fibrosis, diabetic, insulin pump, just a whole list of doctors, and that's what keeps me busy, really, is the doctors and trying to keep my health up. So I would like to get it while they're still with me, get my dad in the driver's seat again, show it to my aunt and let her go for a ride in it also. Her memory's getting worse, my dad's memory's getting a little worse. So I would just really like to get it at least running, and it would be really nice to get it running in the next few months. And then I'd have to figure out space-wise how I can start working on the body parts and panels. If you look back in, I think it's episode 3 or 4-ish on this 29 Tudor project, you can see where the rust in the doors, both doors, rust in the inner quarter panels, rust across the back, there's a little bit, and some of the wood body blocks are totally rotten and missing. Like right here where the cowl comes in, and just figuring all this out. This windshield, very rusty. I sanded and tried to get it, and then I just put this layer of primer on it to just try to stop it from rusting anymore. Most of the top wood kit broken. What's left is kind of broken, and a lot of it is missing. There's a header piece of wood that's supposed to be here. That's totally gone. So body, there's a lot of work, but it would really be nice just to get the engine going. So anyways, back to my list. So as you can see, I kind of broke it down into engine, and then wheels and brakes, and then body. And this is really high level. So it's not like, you know, each one of these could be days or weeks or months to get it done. And, you know, then after all this, someplace not even on this list would be paint, you know, paint and polish, and then interior. You know, so this is just the beginning. Okay, so let's go over this list. As I said, last year I went through a lot of carburetors, cleaning up some really rough ones. Side note, one of the things I'm trying to do on this project is use his original parts. So this is still his original car. It would probably have been cheaper just to go out and buy a 29 Tudor that was the right color and and just enjoy that car. Because by the time all the labor I've already put into this, let alone the labor still to come, plus interior kits can be $5,000–6,000. The wood kits can be $1,000 in just the wood kits, and that's not installed. You know, you still have to install it. Wiring on this isn't too complicated, but there's still some wiring that is involved. Paint and body, you know, for a nice paint job can be $5,000. Even an economy paint job, I've done cars before that by the time me spraying them, by the time I do all the thinners, the prep work, primer, sealer, a good quality car paint, you know, you're looking at close to $1,000 in just materials for good quality stuff that's going to last. You know, you can get by with a few $100 paint job, and you know, your paint will fade or crack or peel or come off. So it's a lot of work to just have it come apart. So one of the primary goals of this is I want to do it myself, and I want to use his original parts as much as possible. So if you look at those carburetor videos, at the beginning you see the Zeniths. One of them's a Zenith and one of them's a Holly, but they're Zenith design. They were so rough and so rusted and just plugged up, and most people would just put them on a shelf and wall decoration or a paperweight on your desk or something. They were so bad. But those are the original carburetors that I got with this car. So I went through a lot of trouble trying to clean those up. And still, some of them, I still need to do some work on some of them, because the gas line input threads is really bad on the, I think it's on the Holly. And the Holly was actually produced in like 27, 28, and a little bit into 29-ish. So I was trying to keep the Holly together because it's an earlier carburetor, and then I think the other one's a Zenith one, or just Zenith, but probably will run the Zenith on this. But right now the one that I ran before was the Tillotson. Anyways, I got a, you know, boxes of different carburetors in various states, and if you watch those videos you can see, and I don't really even go into rebuilding so much on the Tillotson, the various series of Tillotsons, and the Marvel Schiebler, and you know, they're all just a little bit different. So anyways, all that to say is I knew I was going to need a carburetor to get this running. So I've been working on this, and I ran and did a bunch of carburetor videos. And then I knew I was going to need a generator and a starter, and that's sort of at the point I'm at now. It's like I found the two starters, and you can see that in a different video where I'm testing them and cleaning them up and getting them to actually turn and see if they're actually viable. So I'm getting to where I need to mount the engine work. gas supply. If I want to mount back here is the cowl, and I got the gas tank sitting there. Another one of those back last, actually that was the beginning of the videos, was the gas tank. Soaking it, trying to get it cleaned out of all the gunk and varnish and built up that was in there. But to mount the cowl under the body, I'd have to unbolt the body, lift it up and get the cowl in there, and then mount the gas tank on it. And a lot of that's going to be, they're not ready for finished paint, so either I continue working on them, working body panels and primer and paint them, and then mount it on here to get the engine running. But that's going to be more delays and more delays. So, the other option, I got this old lawnmower tank, and it's got a fitting on the bottom that I could just kind of temporarily mount up here somewhere and let it drain down into the carburetor. And so trying to decide temporary mount and try to get it running, and then switch over once it's running to body, cowl, gas tank. Kind of leaning that way, because temporary tank, I could get it running quicker, because the original tank, I still need to finish cleaning it, coat the inside, and actually probably paint the tank itself and the cowl. So gas supply. Number two is for a test start, I need to finish selecting and setting the float on the carburetors and the distributor. I showed a little quick video of this distributor, and you can see when you pop that off, this cap's supposed to be springy. The button is just wore off. It has a little bit of slop in it. It would probably run with this. I mean, it's minor, so probably need to rebuild the distributor and put new bushings in it. But and then of course set the timing, set the carburetor, and then wire the engine for a start using the coil, install the starter. And I think I can't tell, I think I took the battery tray off. I know I did, because that was one of the small parts videos. I was painting various smaller parts like the window regulators, and I was painting the battery tray bracket. So I need to install that bracket, install the battery, the cables, install the starter, mount it up. I have two starters, and one of them didn't have a Bendix, so I went ahead and ordered a Bendix for it. So I'm going to be working on starters to try to choose which one I'm going to go with, because one of them, well, now it's about 4 years ago, when I was doing the chassis, I cleaned up the starter because I thought that was the good one and painted it. So it looks pretty, but whether it's, functioning the best. So after doing all that, possibly be able to test start the engine. And the other part that I don't even have on here is cooling / radiator. So I think I still have some radiator hoses from 40 years ago. I think I may have ordered some more radiator hoses, but I have the radiator. I think it's actually in the back seat back here. And I don't know if I ever got when my dad bought his 28 coupe, you've probably seen in the other videos, he's got a 28 special coupe, like a little green coupe, but the guy just replaced the radiator, so he gave us his old one, which was probably fine. And so I need to get that from him, because it's a 28 and it would fit on here. And that one's actually was running 2 years ago in a car. This one's been beat around in storage for 40 years since I used it when it ran. And I'm not even sure, it probably kept pouring the water in the top faster than it was coming out, leaking out. So radiator's a big question, and then just getting it set up and installed so I can run the engine a little longer. So once I get all that done, I'd be able to test run the engine at least, and hopefully it runs. You know, the camshaft in it had some bad rust on it, but it's going to run as well as it can and do another break-in period. One of the issues with this engine was it was rebuilt 62, never ran, so the rebuilder cleaned the inside of the engine of all the oily gunk that could have protected it from rust. So when I opened it up, it was pretty rusty, and some of the lobes on the cam had a little rust on it, so I used some emery cloth and tried to file it down so that, but it is what it is. You know, once it wears off, we'll have to just pull the camshaft and put new cams and lifters in. But hopefully it'll run, get the radiator on, let it run in for a little while. Maybe even test the clutch and the transmission. And I got to get different tires on it. These won't take any air, and they're flat, and they're at least 60 years old, and they're so hard that they're going to be really difficult to get off the rims, to fight them to get off the rims. So that's the next goal, would be to get it started and get it running. So that's the plan, and I guess in the upcoming video I'm going to get started on this, looking at the distributor, looking at the starters, and probably try to mount the battery tray and get the battery and cables mounted, sort of figure out temporary gas tank, and select the carburetor that I'm going to try to use, and see if it'll start, see if it'll run again. That'll be a nice little feather in the hat, and let my dad come and see it running again at least. Really, once it's running, if I get the radiator mounted, it should clutch, transmission, steering. There's none of the brake rods are connected, but so no brakes. But I have brake rods. We could probably install the brake rods and see if they function or not. So that's sort of the plan right now. So everybody watch and subscribe, and click the like button. Get more videos like this. So take care, everybody. So that's the plan for getting the engine going. So over here on the right, you can see further issues, which would be I need to pull the wheels, check the bearings, repack them, check and adjust the brakes, and install the brake rods, which I have some brake rods here, and then check the transmission, probably drain the oil, refill it, check the rear diff oil, and drain and refill, check the clutch and adjust it. It's pretty hard to adjust it without the engine running, but you know, you can rock the car back and forth and sort of adjust it. I need to do something with the wheels and tires. I'd like to try to keep these, since these are the ones that he was running, but they've been out in the weather so much and they are just really rusted. And the tire's 60 plus years old, maybe even close to 70, because I'm not sure if he bought new tires when he bought the car. But we'd have to see, maybe able to, I think on one of the tires, it's actually got a split in it where it's like, it's bulging out. And so I got another set of wheels and rims that are painted red that some guy was hot rodding his car, and it was just about 20 minutes south of me, so I went over there and checked them out. And I hate when they take a nice car and try to make a hot rod out of it, and just instead of just buying one that has already been hot rodded. But he had these actually 5 rims, so I went ahead and bought those so that I have a good set with a decent set of tires on them. I'm not sure how old they are. So that's wheels, brakes, tires. Final section, well, will be the body. Welding the door lowers, inner and outer. So the bottom of the door is rusted, so you get an inner panel, and then there's a lower bottom panel, or you can replace the whole door skin if necessary. But to do that, I'm going to have, I need to get my air compressor wired up, and I sold my old compressor at my old house, and I finally found one that I like, but now I have to wire it in. And so I need to do some major wiring at this house for this garage for that air compressor and my welders, because to do most of this is going to involve welding. So weld the door lowers, weld the rear quarters. These 2 doors are hard to find the inner quarter panel patches. It has kind of special little humps and bumps in there, and it's inside under the fender. So some people list those panels in for other cars like the coupes or the roadsters and stuff like that, but they're different, or even the 4 doors, but they're different. And every time I go to look for the 2-door 2829 Tudor, Tudor 2-door, they're out of stock and you can't get them. It's not completely shot, so I could probably use the small patch panels, weld them in, grind them flat, and fit patch panels together. One of the big things, which I talked about already, is the cowl. Weld lower cowl patches to be able to mount the gas tank. The gas tank is fairly solid, but the lower cowls, like most of these Model A's, has a little small area that needs patching. And once again, you need the welder to do that. The rear cross member, and when he was driving this, I think he was in high school or college, he was sliding it around on the ice, and he goofing around in a parking lot, and the rear end caught on some dirt or gravel, and the whole body rammed sideways. And he said he drove home because it sheared that rear pin back there. And when I was doing the chassis, I could see where the pin had mangled the rear cross member. It's not a big deal, but if I take the body off, I may try to weld that back up a little bit where he hit it and damaged it. And once he got home, he straightened the body and replaced the pin, the bolt that was sheared. Oh yeah, number 5, test fit and replace the wood for body mounting. So before you can mount the body, there's boards that Ford used, sort of like shims, or to mount the body between the body and the frame. So there's several body pieces. Before I set this body back on here, because I had it separated at my other shop, and you can see in the early pictures in section, I think it's video 2, 3, 4, somewhere in there, when it's sitting on the floor and I had it rolled up and I was trying to clean up the rust, um, I could see there's those body blocks were totally missing, and I guess had rotted through the years and from the weather and whatever else. So just as a temporary means, I took I think it was a 2x4, maybe it's a 4x4, just a pine piece of wood, cut it down, made it fit, so I had some kind of piece in there, and then I actually put the body back on and bolted it down so I can move it. And I moved from closer to Atlanta to, I'm now near Macon, so it was like it's about an hour and a half, 2-hour drive. So I wanted it bolted down instead of for the whole years that I remember it, this thing had a chain holding it down and some old ropes holding it. So it was mostly gravity holding it down during all those years. But anyways, there's wood between the body and the chassis. Then number 6, top wood and bows, this header panel and all the bows. And there's tack strips that are supposed to nail through here to be able to put the roof on, the canvas roof on. And so it has to have something to nail those tacks into. So this whole structure pretty much is gone. So I need to replace the wood bows and all that. And that gets it to the point where probably maybe even have to disassemble some of it and look at painting. I started on one fender. I just sanded the whole thing down, looking at the layers of paint. It appears like this was kind of that rose beige and seal brown. So rose beige is sort of a gray with a hint of browny rose to it. And then I went through different layers with the grinder. And when he bought it, it was actually red with black fenders, which was 30 or 31. I think they had a red option for the two-door, but this 29 was not really supposed to have been red. So going back to the rose beige and working, some of these fenders are pretty rough, but I did one rear fender and still got to do the other 3. These splash aprons. Running boards were totally gone, so I had to order some replacement running boards. And when they send you these sheet metal, it's raw metal. It may have a layer of oil on it from the machining, but so as soon as I get them from the UPS man, open the box, wipe it off really good, wipe all that oil off, and then using etching primer, primer it, and then I stuffed it back into the box. Don't just order stuff and leave it sitting in the box and it's raw metal, especially here, we have such high humidity, it'll just come seeping through the walls, and even if you're not leaving it out in the rain, that humidity will make it rust. And then if you go ahead and primer it, if you need to weld it later, you can just sand the primer back off. So those running boards, I think actually the running boards, I scuffed them, wiped them down, primered them, and I think I actually painted them black with some like Rust-Oleum, just black chassis paint, and to get them ready. That may not be the final black, but that'll keep them from rusting anymore, and will be a kind of a test fit for, because when you're putting this body together, you have to put it in order. So like there's webbing that goes under here, felt webbing, or not felt, welting, and in certain areas there's this welting material, other areas it's not. Like right here where the cowl mounts, right here, so you have to know whether there's a welting that goes there or if it's just bolted solid. And these frames flex so much that they put welting between the chassis and the body so it wouldn't keep scuffing and wearing away the steel. That will give it a little flexibility. But now you can see, I don't know if you can see the hood sitting right here, needs work. I actually started, when I got it running 40 years ago, I started working on some of the body and sanding the hood, sanding some of this, even sanded some of this windshield frame that had some more like a red primer. And then recently I did this more brown primer. I took one of these flash aprons. There's the original one, which isn't too bad a shape. And here's the one that I sanded down. It did some primer on it, at least. That was sort of right before I moved. You know, I was starting to work on some of these body panels because they were so rusty. I just wanted it to stop. And it's like holding back the tide at the beach. It's like stop the rust from getting any worse. And you know, if he had just done that, knowing that it was going to sit up for 60 years, slop some whatever paint on there to you know, just a black chassis over everything, and then it wouldn't be rusty, and I could just take and remove that. So that's the plan. Let's see what I do with the marker. The final thing is interior. Well, first paint and interior, and you know, which again, those can be some. If I get a professional to paint it, you know, it could be several $1,000s. If I paint it myself, I've done 57 Chevys back as a teenager and other cars over the years. I need to practice and do some more, but get up to speed again. So I'm thinking I'm going to try to do the paint myself, and then interior. Actually talked with my dad, and my grandmother, his mom, actually bought material and sewed these seat covers. So probably gonna save the seat covers and try to recover the seats, and maybe do something with the seat covers, you know, as a memento to my grandmother. And but that's about it. That's the plan. So now it's time to get to work. All right, everybody, take care and stay safe.